Hello, 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 and welcome back again to another edition of Motivation Mondays. Today we got something a little bit different. George Lucas. Is he a motivator speaker? Well, he's an entrepreneur, right? He started out with nothing, created the one of the best science fiction soap operas, you could call it, Star Wars. Well, in this clip, it's very motivational because he talks about really following your passion and things like that. And since this is kind of like Star Wars week, actually, this is after May the 4th. This is actually May the 9th, but being though this Star Wars week just passed, I thought we would dive into George and how, yes, he can spur us on in our endeavors or our whatever we're trying to get accomplished in entrepreneurship or whatever like that. So take a look at this speech. This speech is brought to us by Corporate Valley, the channel Corporate Valley. And this speech is very good. I just stumbled upon this. And it is awesome. Let's just take a look at it and see what we can glean from this.
I actually wrote the story and produced Indiana Jones. I didn't actually direct it. It was that other guy that looks like me.
Steven Spielberg.
I'll give you two things. One which I've answered a few times here around the table, so I figured I'd share it with everybody, which is, how did I end up where I am? When I was in high school, I was a consummate underachiever.
Sounds like me.
I hated school.
Oh, that
I loved to build things. I loved woodworking. I loved
I was a horrible student. Those of you who don't know my story, I was not a good student at all. It wasn't that I didn't like learning, but I just didn't like the structure of school. I liked, learning what I wanted to learn. I feel the same way.
working on cars and engines. Worked in a foreign car service, and all I wanted to do was race cars.
I didn't want to race cars.
Right before graduation, I was in a terrible automobile accident and was almost killed, and as a result of that, sort of sat in a hospital for a long time thinking about my place in the world.
Wow.
And decided that I would give education another try, and took my very bad grades to a junior college, and discovered social science, the humanities. Became very infatuated with anthropology and psychology, and suddenly found something that I really loved, and did very well. And
it's funny how you can always do well at the things that you love or you have a passion for, and that's what's wrong with the school structure. In the school structure today, it's like some of the things that, we aren't passionate about is hard for us to do. And that was definitely my problem, especially when it came to like algebra and math and geometry. Oh my God, I kept failing algebra like it wasn't nobody's business. It was horrible.
then when I graduated and I was about to go on to the last 2 years of college, at San Francisco State to get a degree in anthropology. My best friend, who I'd grown up with since I was 4 years old, said, come with me to Stockton. I have to take a test to get into USC, and I don't want to do it alone, and come on, just take the test with me so I don't have to be there all by myself. So I said, okay. So I went up there and took the test, not thinking that I'd pass, but I did pass, and actually I got accepted at USC, and I said to my friend, well, now what am I going to do? I said, I really like anthropology, and I think I want to do that. And he said, yeah, but you wanted to go to art center. You really wanted to be an artist, and this is your second choice, anthropology. And I did. I wanted to be an artist, a photographer. I'd done a lot of photography, and I wanted to be an illustrator. But my father said, there'll be no artists in this family. That's a horrible way to make a living.
Is it really? It's funny how we don't know who we are talking to at a particular moment. You never know who in your family or whatever may turn out to be. Their idea, their passion, their love, their creativity. You never know.
And if you want to go and be an artist, then you're going to have to pay for it. And he knew me well enough to know that I wasn't about to do that. I will take the route of least resistance. I had sort of picked up my grades, but I was still a consummate underachiever.
Oh man, but that's such an underachieving school.
So he said, well, SC, they've got a department there of photography. I said, oh, that sounds good. He said, it's easier than PE, you'll love it. I said, well, okay, maybe I'll do that. So I went down there, and it wasn't a school of photography, it was a school of cinematography. And it wasn't actually a school of cinematography, it was actually a school of cinema, where you learn to make movies. And I said, this is insane. You mean you go to a university and you can learn how to make movies? I never heard of such a silly thing. So, and I hadn't really paid much attention to movies when I was young. I sort of watched a little bit of television stuff. Went and saw Earth versus the Flying Saucers and, Bridge on the River Kwai and a few things like that. But I didn't know anything about movies. And I got there, my first semester, I had to take a lot of requirements, Spanish, science, that sort of stuff. But I got to take 2 classes. One was a history of movies. And growing up in a very small town with one movie theater, I hadn't seen a lot of movies.
Wow.
And,
unbelievable. He hadn't even seen
we didn't get a television until I was 10. So in those days, one of the main advantages of being in a film school was when you take a history class or something, you actually got to see movies that you couldn't see. It's an amazing thing, the world you live in today. You can actually go down to a store and just get any movie that's almost ever been made.
Yeah.
And you can see it, and then you can actually have the filmmaker, in the extra bonus disc,
You
tell you how they made
search
it
them
and everything. That's basically what a film school was.
and find more,
surrounded by a lot
multiple
of kids
media
that sort of
outlets.
believed the same thing you did. So I got there and I learned about movies, which I really didn't know anything about in terms of the history of movies, watching really great movies. And I had a production class, Introduction to Animation, where eventually they gave me 1-minute film, and they said, here, run the camera, follow these instructions. Move it to the right, move it to the left, move it up, move it down. And so I took that little assignment with my 1 minute of film, and I made a 1-minute movie out of it. I took a lot of still photographs and created a collage and a whole different way of doing animation, and put a soundtrack to it. My professor was unbelievably impressed with it, and it blew everybody away in the film department. And they sent it out to festivals, and it won like 47 festivals.
Wow.
And I said, wow.
See how that just goes to show you how, even he's like, wow. It goes to show you that it was already in him, his creativity or whatever. Like he already said he wanted to be an artist or an illustrator. And it just came out in the movies. Once he learned the movie making process, that artist or whatever just came out. And it already was wowing people. And that's why his movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, they wow people because of his imagination. It's his imagination, his creativity.
Wow. I know how to do this. I'm actually pretty good. Matter of fact, I'm better than anybody here. I love this. This I want to do this the rest of my life. And so I was lucky enough to find my path, my passion. Before that, I had passions. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to build cars. I wanted to create things. And I liked anthropology. I was very interested in social science, very interested in why we do things, where we came from, all kinds of, mythology. And I realized after a few years, and then I went to film school, made movies, and ended up being where I am. But I realized that I was following on everything I did. I was following something I really cared about.
Yeah.
Something I loved, something I was passionate about. And I kept following that passion, whether it was cars, whether it was anthropology, whether it was art, photography.
And the thing is, you could see that in his work. If you think about it, if you're into Star Wars or whatever, you can see the mythology and the things he's talking about, the cars. Remember the speeder bikes and the light speed and all those things. That you could see that in his work. Those were his passions.
And eventually, it led me to my huge passion, my real passion, which was making movies, which combined all of those things.
Yeah, you
and
could see it all in there.
I'd gone on to get my degree in anthropology, I would have probably made anthropological movies in New Guinea or someplace, and eventually been on National Geographic and the History Channel, and been then making features, and I'd have done Star Wars just the same. If I'd have gone to Art Center and become an illustrator, I would have probably started doing animation and doing animated films and making animated things, and then ultimately I would have gone on and been right where I was. So no matter which route I took, because I cared about all of them, they all led to the same place. Had I done what my father had wished me to do, which is to go into the office equipment business with him, which I knew I wasn't going to do, I knew I hated that, my life would have been...
Wow, we would have had no Star Wars.
And so I think it's very important not to do what your peers think you should do, not do what your parents think you should do, or your teachers, but to do what you inside, or even your culture thinks, but do what's inside you. When I went to film school, everybody said, well, you're nuts. What are you going to film school for? Nobody from a film school had ever gotten a job in the film business. Just had never happened. So you were just doomed to be a ticket taker at Disneyland. So they was like, why would you do that? Why don't you take a major that you can actually get a job at? Why do them? But once I fell in love with it, there was no going back, even though I had absolutely no chance of making it in the film business. And I did the same thing when I graduated. I moved back to San Francisco. And they said, well, you can't make movies in San Francisco. You're crazy. I said, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't like those kind of movies. I want to do different kind of movies.
Do what you
they said,
want.
well, you'll fail. It'll just never happen. And we managed to make it work in San Francisco.
That's a great point. So many people are told that they're no good or they're going to fail. That's not going to work. I said this story 100 times with my father. When I started my pest control business back in 2002, he said he doesn't like it. No, he kept telling me he was going to let you in their house. It's not profitable. I don't like it. It's stupid. You got to get dirty. You got to, go in basements and crawl spaces and look for rats and stuff like that. And I just had this vision of it, and I put it together. And I always say after our third year, we cleared over $120,000. And my dad's just like, he just couldn't believe it. My boy, how did he do it? He stick to his passion and got it done. And that's the same thing what George is talking here.
So that's the long story of how I got here. Another short story of one thing I discovered along the way is that several speakers have ever talked about happiness. And I've discovered along the way that happiness, you live in two worlds here. Happiness is pleasure, and happiness is joy. It can be either one. You add them up, and it sort of falls under the uber category of happiness. Pleasure is short-lived. It lasts an hour, lasts a minute, lasts a month. And it peaks and then goes down. It peaks very high. But the next time you want to get that same peak, you have to do it twice as much. It's like drugs. You have to keep doing it because it insulates itself.
First date, first kiss.
No matter what it is, whether you're shopping, whether you're engaged in any other kind of pleasure, that all has the same quality about it. On the other hand is joy, and joy is a thing that doesn't go as high as pleasure in terms of your emotional reaction, but it stays with you. Joy is something you can recall.
It's longevity.
Pleasure you can't. So the secret is that even though it's not as intense as the pleasure, the joy will last you a lot longer. And people who get the pleasure, they keep saying, well, if I can just get richer and get more cars, you'll never relive the moment you got your first car. That's it. That's the highest peak. Yes, you can get 3 Ferraris and a new Gulfstream jet, and maybe you'll get close. But you have to keep going. And eventually you run out. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. So if you're trying to sustain that level of peak pleasure, you're doomed. It's a very American idea, but it just can't happen. You just let it go. Peak, great. Pleasure is fun. It's great. But you can't keep it going forever. Just accept the fact that it's here and it's gone. And maybe again it'll come back and you'll get to do it again. Joy lasts forever. Pleasure is purely self-centered. It's all about your pleasure. It's about you. It's a selfish, self-centered
I love it.
emotion. that's created by a self-centered motive of greed.
Mm.
Joy is compassion. Joy is giving yourself to somebody else,
Ooh,
something else.
giving.
And it's a kind of thing that is, in its subtlety and lowness, much more powerful than pleasure. If you get hung up on pleasure, you're
It's
doomed.
long lasting.
If you pursue joy, you will find everlasting happiness. So with that, I'm gone. Bye-bye, thank you.
Man, it's awesome. I mean, that was a great speech. This is brought to you by Corporate Valley. That really was a awesome speech by George. He's so calm in his delivery and stuff. He's so calm and like a regular guy. That's what I liked about it, because he was just like a regular guy, regular kid going to college and stuff like that. And he took his passions and found what he really loved and learned the art of movie making. And all his passions came out in that, his creativity, his imagination, and everything like that. You know, it's a lot to gather. You know, George is a great storyteller. That was a good story. You sit back and just listen to the story. If you like people that tell stories or whatever like that to you, you see how good he is of a storyteller? How he just laid out how he got into it and everything like that. He didn't talk about Star Wars and lightsabers and things like that, but he just talked about the story of it. And that's something that I can really take out of this. I got 3 things that I got out of this to motivate me. One is George's storytelling ability. If you could do that in your newsletters, especially in your relationship building with your clients, it's so huge. We all connect with good stories. You know, I'm always an advocate for telling your story. I don't care if you have a diaper business, you clean up dirty diapers. Tell your story. We all connect with each other with stories. Tell your story, how you started your business, why you started your business, whatever it is, how you fell into it. Just like that. That one video there got 170,000 views or whatever, 10-minute storytelling video. Awesome. Next, number 2. Everything that we see from George is his passion. So you see where he wanted to be an artist, illustrator. He was bad at school. So many entrepreneurs are bad at school. It's so funny. Henry Ford, people drop out of college and things like that. Mark Zuckerberg. So some people are just, Mark was really bad at school, but he dropped out to start Facebook. But a lot of people are not good at school, but they're great at, you know, building on their passion. And that is what the world needs. Can you imagine the world without Star Wars and the special effects and everything that he did? Man. Well, anyway, we see all those, his passions in his movies. That's why his movies are so good. He's a great storyteller, and then he's bringing his passion. You think about, if you're a Star Wars nerd or whatever, you think about like the speeder bikes, and you know, you think he always like racing and things like that. You know, light speed. You know, they jumping into hyperspace or whatever, and then also, one thing that caught my mind was if you're familiar with Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon, that ship was always breaking apart. They're always working on it. It's breaking down. The hyperdrive isn't working. You know, they gotta go in and fix it, or do this, do that, or whatever. And it jumps in at the last minute and saves the day. You can see how that was all his passion. You know, working on cars, things like that. That's all in the movie. But that third point that he made. Well, the third point that I got is, it was his second point, because he told a story, and he was talking about joy and finding the pleasure. Man, that was huge. Happiness. You do get those high key, pleasurable moments, but usually when you're seeking those, it is selfish. When you think about what he's talking about, with a person who is struggling maybe with drugs or something like that, they're trying to reach that high, they become very selfish, right? They might steal or whatever like that from their family, or whatever the case is. You think of people who have problems with different addictive things, maybe sex or something. They're addicted to that, and they're willing to do whatever to get it, you know, and then it's so hard to multiply that pleasure. But when you're in a joy space, the joy space is, what I always like about a joy space, is long lasting. Like he said, it's not that peak that you get, but it's long lasting. And then you help satisfy a lot of people. Like you're getting a joy by giving, and then we're all like getting a great joy by watching his films and being entertained and everything like that. And then at the same time, he's finding joy with sharing his passion with us in this world or whatever that he's created or whatever. It's just like a win-win. That's why I think his films and stuff do so well, because that's how he knows how to connect with the people. So with that in view, do that in your business, especially with your newsletter. Find ways in which you can connect with your audience like that, with your clients. Connect with them. Share it. Continue to show your passion. Let them see that passion in your stories and things like that. And they will connect with you. That's so huge, you know. After this, I'm so fired up. I'm ready to go get started. I'm ready to write some newsletters and whatever else, okay? So that was, this is Motivation Mondays. George Lucas. May the 4th be with you, even though this is the 9th. Yeah, use this to motivate you or whatever in your endeavor, and to improve on your relationship building with your clients. Now, if there's a case you are maybe having some problems with your newsletters, or you need some ideas, or whatever the case is, don't make your newsletters generic. Your newsletter is the perfect opportunity for you to stay in contact with all your clients, and also to build solid relationships with them, positive relationships with them. And you can do that with your newsletter week after week, month after month, year after year. Have a loyal client base. If you want to learn the #1 formula for newsletters, download the free book, Become a Newsletter Marketer. You could download it free, click the link here, or you can also get it on Amazon or Apple. It's available everywhere for you to download for free, and you can learn the steps that you can take to build solid relationships with all of your clients in your business. Okay? With that being said, my name is Aaron McLeod, creative newsletter writing consultant with Newsletter Marketer. I'm out. We will see you on the next video. Take care.